I can tell you the ArriveCAN app has been a real mess. Take the example of Bernadette in my riding. She was forced into a 14-day quarantine when she is double vaccinated, has a booster, and is now receiving threatening phone calls harassing her to complete her testing requirements or face a jail time and or a $650,000 fine. She's 75 years old.
This is not the Canada that I remember. This is not Canada.
When waiting in line for security at airports, watching people struggle with delays, and fighting the mandatory use of the barely functioning ArriveCAN app, something that this government insists on using. And remember how I mentioned earlier how they would only take paper documents? Well, now they want an app, something that's totally digital, which is another decision that spits in the face of common sense loving Canadians.
ArriveCAN provides a serious accessibility barrier to many Canadians, in particular those who may not own a smartphone or have the digital literacy to properly navigate the process.
I shouldn't have to go through this. No Canadian should, just because I don't want to put an app on my phone. It's insane.
We saw during the 2021 budget that Mr. Trudeau announced $105 million for a project called the Non-Digital Traveler Identity.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask my colleague, he brought up tourism, and I want to talk to him about air travel. In page 74 of the budget, there is an announcement of $105 million over 5 years for something known as the Known Traveler Digital Identity pilot project. A Google search of Known Traveler Digital Identity takes us to the World Economic Forum.
A project in partnership with the World Economic Forum that opened the door to a biometric and digital identity. So when will the social credit? It's pretty hilarious that we pay our taxes to shackle us and put more restriction on us. ArriveCAN was installed during the pandemic to track quarantine plan and ensure that travelers entering in Canada were fully vaccinated. Today, unvaccinated travelers are allowed to travel but must, no matter how many times they test negative, be subject to a 2-week quarantine.
Current policy, though, is that we are supposed to issue you a quarantine order at that point. So that's what I'm going to have to do then today. So,
But I'm vaccinated. Isn't that just for unvaccinated?
well, it comes down to this is what I have to do as a screening officer. I don't have the ability to make that decision.
This is clearly a punishment for choosing not to be injected as the government has imposed. With ArriveCAN, not only are the non-vaccinated receiving this punitive penalty, but so are those who refuse to submit to the ArriveCAN application or who have not updated their application. All this without mentioning the unnecessary stress of being questioned with multiple questions by public health officials. Don't forget to sign our petition at noarrivecan.com. Today, Joanne tells us what she experienced when she went through land custom and had to suffer the perverse consequences of not downloading the mandatory government application ArriveCAN. Let's check it out.
It was when I went into the American side, I went through no problem. They took my passport. They asked me to smile in this camera. I waved. They let me through. It took about 30 seconds. When I came back to Canada, it took, I don't know, maybe an hour, because the first checkpoint was this officer who asked me for my passport and my ArriveCAN on my phone. And I said I didn't have one. And he was rolling his eyes. I could tell that he didn't want to hear that. So, but he gave me a yellow card. And he said, you have to go to the other building for this. So I had to cross the street to get to that other building. I could have just left. I could have just kept walking. But I went into the building, offered my yellow card, and the officers just kept asking me, where's your ArriveCAN? And I can say, I don't have one. It's that simple. They asked me for my vaccine papers. I gave that. And the irony of the vaccine papers is that the last vaccine I got was 14 months ago. So it's probably not even good anymore, right? They came back and said, you have to quarantine for 14 days. And I said, why? I don't have COVID and I'm vaccinated. They said, well, it's because you don't want to download the ArriveCAN. Obviously, it was a punishment, because why else would they quarantine me? Because I'm vaccinated, right? So the other people, I hear that people who come in unvaxxed into Canada have to quarantine for 14 days. Yeah, fine. Well, not fine, but because if I had COVID in Canada, if I had COVID now, I would only have to quarantine for 5 days, right? But they say 14 days. So just being 14 days is a punishment in itself. When actual fact, it's only a 5-day quarantine. And nurses can go back to work positive, right? So it's definitely a punishment. I didn't get a ticket or anything, just the quarantine. But today I had a call from Health Canada, and the recording states that if I don't do as I'm told with, replying, they gave me a kit, right? A 2-thing kit. If I don't do it, they will keep calling me. And what I'm afraid of is that if I block their number, like a lot of people suggested that I block their number, I'm afraid that if I block the number, the police will come and issue me that $5,000 or $6,000 fine that they talk about so many got. So I called my MP. Her name is Karina Gould. She's minister of something or other. Like Karina Gould is, I volunteered for her campaign twice, and I voted for her twice. So I called her office and I explained what was going on. I wanted her to help me with the harassment that I'm getting. I wanted her to do something. This is ridiculous. And so I explained what was going on, and they said, well, we'll look into it. And nothing has happened. This is this morning. I'm not surprised, but well, as I said, I am 11th generation Canadian, and I'm very proud of that. But when I came back to Canada, I didn't feel Canadian at all. And it's sort of eerie because they don't speak loud, and they gang up in corners, and you go, oh my God, is this like that in China or in Russia? You feel as though you are a criminal,
Are you scared of what is going next?
I'm afraid for my granddaughter and other grandchildren that I have. I'm scared for the future. I don't think they'll have the opportunities that I did. They will own nothing and be happy. But I don't believe that for 1 second. I do not believe that for 1 second. It's scary sometimes to say, no, I won't comply. It's scary. But once you do it, you feel good. And if we don't comply, they have to stop, right? They can't go anywhere if the population says, no, thank you, I'll pass. And that's the way we do it, one person at the time. has to say, no, no, thank you. And that's it. It's very simple. Do not comply.
So as you know, at Ribbon News, we want to challenge the ArriveCAN app, but we need your help for the legal fee. So if you can chip in generously at noarrivecan.com. And as well, if you think that you are the perfect case to challenge it, please fill the form at the same webpage, noarrivecan.com. Thank you.